Hello and welcome back to another episode of the CARA Method. Today is the beginning of, it's the first Tuesday of August. I had to do math in my brain. So we're going to go ahead and do some more of the CARA Method today. Today is one of my favorite topics. We're going to talk about epigenetics, which is totally why I'm here, because legitimately, I tested positive for COVID yesterday and have been in bed all day. Can you see this giant red thing here? That's from literally wiping my nose so much. I'm living on orange juice. But that's how cool this topic is. I am so excited to share this with you. Let's jump right in. As you come in, if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them into the chat. I will be paying attention. But we're going to go ahead and recap what we talked about in the last clarity episode, right? So the CARA method. First, we're going to talk about understanding ourselves. Then we're going to understand others. And then we're going to do life. That's what we're doing today. And that's going to allow us to achieve a understanding of how simple leadership actually is. It's really as simple as growing up, right? So we started with understanding ourselves. We are meat suits, full of hormone soup, made of stardust, and controlled by this mush management team, right? All of the trauma and drama that we have absolutely experienced, I know that you have, is because, let's see, center myself. Oh, hi guys. Is because you are navigating your meat suit in a universe full of meat suits, and trauma and drama are a byproduct of that reality. It's all the same, but different. It's not really about therapy so much as understanding how to move forward, right? That's what the whole CARA method process is about. We talked about Newtonian physics and motivation, and then we talked about understanding the we of it, how like all brains work. Now here's the craziest thing. All brains work differently in exactly the same way, right? Okay, so all processes come in through your brainstem. Remember, that's like your toddler inside your body, and then it goes into your amygdala. That's like your teenager, and then your frontal cortex is like your adulty adult. Now, what happens in there changes how that process works, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about life, but I wanted to remind you of those spaces. So that brainstem space, that toddler space, that's also that place where we come up with that BS because we either know or we don't know. And if we don't know, it brings up every time in our life where we didn't know. And that BS, that belief system, that there's something inherently wrong with me, because obviously everybody else knows what they're doing, but I don't know what I'm doing. So I must be the problem. But that's just skill building. And since you have grown up, you know how to play. Since you know how to play, that is the skill for building skills, right? So you already have a tool in your toolbox for addressing that exact situation, and you can use it over and over in lots of different ways, and we're going to really dive into that in a little bit. And then that amygdala, that limbic system, that's your teenager, that's that hijack space where I absolutely know everything except I make terrible connections, #teenagers. And that's where the next tool in your toolbox, the BS there, the belief system is that there's something wrong with someone else. Like, I got a handle on me, I know what I'm doing, #teenagers. But obviously you're the problem. My boss won't let me do it, the team's in the way, I'm waiting for somebody, all of these outside pointing finger moments where obviously the problem is somebody else. Well, you already have a tool for that because you can learn, right? You can listen, you can earn abilities, you can reflect, and you can network. If you can learn, it's another little tool in your toolbox. Regardless of what problem you are working with another person, the more you learn, the less of a challenge it is. Handles that BS every single time. We will dive into that again. And then the frontal cortex, your most adulty adult. So that's going to be where the belief system, the BS, is that there's something wrong with life. Like, this is just how it's always been. It's too big of a problem. It's too baked into the system. It's bureaucratic. It's systemic. All of those belief systems that hold us back. That is, you've already grown up, so you have a grow mentality. You've already shown that. You have set goals. You have looked at your reality. You have found that opportunity. You've done the work to get it. You've done that in your life. If you can do that, then you can handle that life BS every single time. Okay. Oh, I've got my little cheater notes here and I just scrolled way too fast. Okay. So that's a recap on what we covered so far, the clarity, the assessing. Now we're going to realign around epigenetics, so the understanding of life. This is where it starts to get interesting, right? So up until this point, everybody has the same experiences. We all have grown up. We all have experienced trauma and drama. We are all meat suits full of hormone soup. It's a pretty standard topic. And we're going to take it and we're going to dive even further into this, right? A little sneaker ahead on the BS, and we're going to really dive into that this time, okay? So for every single thing that happens, the wind blows, you drink some orange juice, you get COVID, you got a sticky nose, somebody says something in a meeting, every single thing that happens goes in through that brainstem. And in that, as you think about it, it creates a little neuro baby. It takes 20 seconds to birth a neuro baby, for neurogenesis to happen around a thought. If you think about something for 20 seconds, it will birth literal life into your brain. You hear what I'm saying? Like literally you have the power of creation in 20 seconds with inside your own mush management team. You have the toddler and the teenager and the adult up in there, right? You can birth new life. And just like any little baby, the more you nurture and feed and love up on that little neuro baby, the bigger, stronger, more powerful girl starts making connections to other parts of your brain and linking in and creating systems. And the ones that you use and think the most with are the ones that are the strongest. They're bulked up, and the more you don't use other ones, the weaker and softer they get. Now again, we're not really going to go into the therapy space there, although we are going to touch in that zone, right? Because so much of the trauma and drama in our life creates those pathways. And the more that we think about those trauma and dramas, the bigger those pathways become. You've probably heard the story of the two wolves inside you. This is a indigenous tale. I don't actually know where the original tale comes from. I first heard it as north, like Alaska, north, indigenous community tale. I don't know if that's actually true. But the story goes, there are two wolves inside of you, a good wolf and a bad wolf. How do you know which one is going to win? It's the one that you feed. It's really as simple as that. So that's literal neurogenesis. So here's the story that has been around forever, for generations on generations. And then science came along and was like, oh, but factually accurate, literally we can track it. The more you feed that thought, think those things, and walk those pathways in your brain, the stronger that becomes. Huh, imagine that. Science proved the woo-woo to be true. That's why we talk about woo-woo corp here at CARA Corner, over here at the CARA Method, because what I have learned, the further I get into neuroscience and epigenetics and behavioral genetics, hashtag side note, I have a 12-week behavioral genetics course coming out with the Genetic Edge Coaching Group, and it is going to be amazing. So anybody who wants to learn more about themselves or would like to be able to apply some of this stuff that I'm talking about today in your own coaching or professional world, leave me a note, Cara Jean at takingcareofbusiness.com. I would love to connect you to all of that. Also, you can find us on LinkedIn, Genetic Edge Coaching. You're welcome. Okay, focusing back in. So, creation. You literally have the power to create whole thoughts and then nurture them and then make them part of your brain pathways. This is also why I say welcome to the COVID brain. Welcome to the spice rack instead of neurodivergence, because the science says that we're all neurodivergent. And I vetted that with a whole bunch of therapists, 26 specifically. I asked Please explain to me neurotypical. Neurodivergent makes sense. I understand the science there. When things happen, your brain creates new pathways and that changes your experience of the world around you. I get that. So who are the neurotypicals? Turns out there's like 3 on the entire planet. If the world is if the spicy neurodiversity is a spectrum, the 20 percentile down here, that's like where you get your diagnoses: autism, ADD, ADHD, all of that lives down here. And the 3 people sitting up here at the very top, those are the 3 neurotypicals. From them, it just gets spicier and spicier and spicier. Why do we build our entire communities around them? Because the people who are further on to the top of that spectrum, they're the ones who just get up and do things. They're the ones who, when they know something needs to get done, they just go do it, which sounds so obvious. Like, obviously, if it needs to get done, go do it. However, for those of us who are on the spicier side of that spectrum, that sounds amazing. Like, how do you just, like, I know that I need to go do it, but just then to go, just do it right then? Like, not set a time and plan for it and budget it into your, how fascinating that life must be. So of course, we build a lot of society around that concept of just getting in there and doing it, because that's how societies progress. Love that. Also, what I heard in that, as I had these discussions with these therapists, is that means those of us who are on the spicier side, where that's kind of a problem and we have to have systems in place to allow us to do that, turns out that's because we're supposed to be innovating. This whole time, that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be innovating the experience so that they can keep going and doing things, and then we spice it up, and then they make it smooth, and then we spice it up and they blend it in. It's meant to work together, not dissimilar to how our brain works together, okay? We're going to dive even further into that as we get on. That comes later as we start talking about the processes of life, okay? So creation. Going backwards into that me BS, those pathways that you have built in your brain every single time you were new at anything, that's why it comes up that there's something wrong with me. That's where that need to fix self or think that we are broken. We're not. You're not broken. You're actually an expert. You're exactly perfect. You have every single thing that you need right now, period. So confident in saying that. Do you see the confidence in me saying that? Because it's true. However, you have to leverage that. So since you can literally create life in your brain, you need to nurture that life. You need to choose the thoughts that you are thinking. Take back that control, #magic3, and check your thoughts. The more you can do that, the more you can be intentional with how you think, the more you can get rid of that me BS. Because you can go down the pathway of, I know how to play, which means I know I can build a new skill, which means there's nothing that I can't do. Your abilities can be developed. With dedication and effort, you can literally do all the things. You really can. It's incredible what your brain is capable of creating. It literally hallucinates this entire experience. I love the 4 agreements. Oh, it took a second for my brain to get there. So Toltec wisdom and the 4 agreements, genius, love every second of it. They talk about the dream, the shared dream of humanity. And science, again, came in and was like, actually factually accurate. Did you know this color yellow that we all agree is yellow? You see yellow, I see yellow. We know that this is yellow unless you are colorblind and then you don't see yellow. But even then you can start to identify hues that people consider yellow. But we also know tangibly that because of the cones in our eyes and the way that light works with the cones in our eyes, we don't see the same color. We have simply agreed to a mass hallucination that this is in fact yellow. Isn't that fascinating? Science out there proving all the woo-woo to be right. So it turns out the big dream of humanity, and you absolutely have the power to create from that. So you have permission. I'm giving you permission. This is part of, we're gonna collapse, realign, and achieve, because the whole point is to achieve an understanding of the me, we life, and the #magic3, the way we think, speak, and behave, right? How that impacts our life. How simple leadership is, because you are already doing it every day. Now we're going to do it a little more intentionally because now you have more awareness, and awareness allows impact. That's how it works. Knowledge is power, but not transformation. It's with that awareness that you can impact and get that repetition that builds the retention that feeds those neuro babies and creates the pathways you want. That was a lot. Let's talk about neuroplasticity, because that's also the other thing that we are talking here, the dynamic nature of your brain. All human brains have a neuroplasticity, literally, it's it bends, it's dynamic, it pulls, it changes, it adapts to all of the situations. Again, it's the diversity of us, the neurodiversity inside our own experience. Our brains will literally change to adapt to how we are experiencing the world, and then that adaptation changes how we experience the world. It's dynamic, it's constant movement, right? So this is that when there is something wrong with you, BS, that we were just talking about, that learning tool, that ability to work with others and learn about something feeds those neural pathways. So once you've already decided to not think of yourself as broken or a failure and decide that you absolutely can play your way to having skills to succeed, then the next step is to know to use a tool, don't be a tool. And use that ability to learn, because when you learn about something, it's not as intimidating, it's not as frightening. Never, ever, ever does having more understanding about a person, place, or thing make you like them less. That's just not how it works. Because, and here's the crazy science, because you literally start mapping your brain in a state of understanding. By leveraging the tool of learning to handle that BS, that belief system, there's something wrong with someone else, you in fact dynamically change your brain into better acceptance of other. Which also means that when you run into that into yourself, it makes it easier to handle. This is that me-we transition. Simply learning adds to the dynamic neuroplasticity and allows that creation of that neurogenesis to strengthen and deepen and really impact how your brain works. Look how powerful you are. This is why I love this brain science stuff. It really is the power of positive thinking proven with science. Thanks, science. Hashtag woo-woo corp. Okay. Epigenetics. So this is where we are going today. Okay. Epigenetics, behavioral genetics. Let's step it way, way back. We're going to really simplify some science here. Okay. So genetics at the base level, right? We all know that we were born and our mommy daddy juices mixed up and they made a little us. And we are a blend of what our parents are. We also know that we're alive in our grandmothers, because as a woman, we're born with all of the eggs that we are going to have, which means that we were that way in that egg inside our mother when she was inside her mother. And that's true for men, you just don't have the eggs born in you, but you were still an egg inside your mother while she was inside your grandmother. Yeah, so genetically speaking, we have multiple generations working its way through our existence. We see this when we do animal husbandry. We do see it when we do plants and start splicing different plants and genes together, because it's not a direct, like these two people make these two plants make this thing. It's like these two plants, but there was this other plant over here, so now this thing has a weird color to it, right? So we call those latent genes in human development. So we know that, right? I have my hair color, I have my skin color, my eyes, the shape of my nose, my hands, all of that is part of that soup of my creation. Now, once upon a time, we thought that was it. We thought that as you were born and you developed, as these baby cells were created, once you were born, that's how you were. You didn't have any neurogenesis, you didn't change, that you just were what you were. Turns out that's not true. Turns out you can create neurogenesis till the end of your days. Turns out your brain is way more dynamic than that. And turns out that those markers from all of those the generations that you have been alive in are like markers in your DNA, right? So you're this swirl of life that is happening inside you, this DNA matrix that tells your body what proteins to create to form you. Reminder, you are literally a different you every few weeks, literally recreating the cells in your body. As ones die off, new ones are created, which means dynamically you are in a constant change of movement. It's that double helix swirly fun, right? So imagine that everything that you do, everything that you experience, everything your mother and your grandmother did and experienced are little tags on that double helix, on your DNA, okay? Again, don't come at me if you're super into science. We are taking this down to kindergarten level so that it is adaptable and ingestible by everyone. Okay, so think of them as little tags. Now, those little tags can help activate or deactivate parts of your DNA. What that looks like is I think a whole lot about how everything works for me. Have I done this with everybody here? Everything works for me. If you think the thought, everything works for me, and you find reasons to say it out loud. I'm thirsty and Myers still orange juice, everything works for me. Or I go to grab my keys and they're exact same spot, everything works for me. You think that thought over and over. You speak that thought over and over. You add a little body movement, so you bake it into your hands, whatever body movement you would like. If you think, speak, and behave that, you are actually activating those tags on your DNA. You're actually creating, strengthening, and activating that section of protein in your DNA that says, oh yeah, print all of these. This is going to come out real strong. Everything works for me. Make it fresh. And the less you think about other things like I am broken, I am damaged, I just am different than everyone around me, rather than thinking those thoughts, switching to this, you choose, right? The two wolves. So you can think that you are damaged or broken or a problem or not good enough or not worthy enough. And the more you think those thoughts, the more you feed those thoughts, the more you activate those tags. They act like, highlighter is not the right word, but if your body is printing proteins off of your DNA structure, it means that those sections, whatever it is that you are thinking and experiencing the most, the pathways that you are deepening, those ones are really easy to print versus the ones you're not spending a lot of time on. They're like the copy of a copy of a copy, and they are harder to print. So the DNA and the proteins that come from that DNA are less strong, less activated is the technical term. Activation is the term. Shouldn't have drank that orange juice. Now I've got a whole, COVID's fun. Okay, so what epigenetics teaches us is you have choice. That idea that you are not worthy, the idea that you don't matter, the idea that you're not good enough is so mind-bogglingly incorrect. I get where it comes from. I lived that life. I have had all of those thoughts. And as I discovered epigenetics, I was like, oh, snap. We are so interconnected. We are so powerful that the fact that we choose to think happy thoughts because it makes ourselves happy, in fact, with epigenetics, we can track not only how that is tangibly impacting our own activation in our DNA in real time, but how it impacts the people around us. Yeah. So there used to be, and I don't know if you've heard this in the working world, but I used to hear this all the time in service, that attitudes are contagious, right? Turns out actually, like worse than COVID though. Like so contagious. Simply choosing to be happy makes the people around you, almost like a ripple effect, happy. Choosing thoughts that make you unhappy, like a ripple effect, makes the people around you unhappy. It's amazing the power that you have, the control, that you have, the impact that you have simply by leveraging the way you think, the way you speak, and the way you behave, because it creates those neuro babies that then create those neural pathways that then create those epigenetic tags and tangibly changes your DNA and those of the people around you. We learned this in the pandemic. Lots and lots of studies got done as everybody shut down because of the COVID, which is alive in my brain, obvious reasons today. And one of the things that they tracked was the impact on teenagers during the pandemic. So houses that shut down, like it was just new levels of stress and anxiety and problems and challenge. They were able to track depression and anxiety increases in the children of the parents who were experiencing heightened states of anxiety and depression. It transferred in real time to the people around them. And then flip that script. Same thing for the families that went home and decided, you know what, we're going to make the best of this. We're going to learn new levels of communication. We're going to figure out how to thrive in this place. And they found new levels of happiness and new levels of communication. They were actually able to track that genetically in real time in their teenagers. So not only are you impacting your internal DNA, and those of the people for future generations, but tangibly impacting those of the people around you. Sit with that for a second. Your choice to be happy is so powerful, it can ripple out and impact the people around you. And your choice to stay in those negative thoughts, and I say choice, like, because it is. You have a choice. You absolutely can take the power and the control and the impact and change those pathways. I'm not saying it's easy though. Like, I'm giving you the information, but having done it for, I'm going on 5 years now that I've been down the rabbit hole of epigenetics and really created the CARA Method and lived this whole new concept of woo-woo corp where woo-woo and science come together to create humanity. Having to unlearn those things, unwrite those patterns and behaviors in your brain is a constant challenge as it first starts. Just like when you're first at anything, it's hard work. That's why we play. That's why we play games like Everything Works for Me. That's why we play games like Which Wolf Are We Feeding? Because the more you make it a game, the easier it is to do. And the first 10 times you do it, oh, it's grueling. And literally physically exhausting. You will find that as you decide that you want to make these choices, you're going to take these choices and you're going to make the choices you want, you're going to find yourself exhausted, tired, depressed, sleepy, because your brain is literally rewriting itself, restructuring whole things that are then restructuring your DNA. Yeah, give yourself a rest. This is why self-care is so important. This is why the huge bulk of what I do over at Cara Corner in my complimentary community is all about self-care. Because if you can't learn those tricks to take care of yourself while you're going through this dynamic change, #humaning, you're going to be more exhausted than you have ever been before. It'll feel like COVID, but worse. Literally haven't been this sick since then. Yeah. So it is a choice. And I say choice because it absolutely tangibly is. And that doesn't mean that it's easy. That doesn't mean your brain is going to want to go there. There are tons and tons and tons of brain diseases is the way that the language is, but it really is pathways that are so deeply formed and intrinsically built, from schizophrenia to, oh gosh, I can't have any words today, guys. Sorry, mucus brain. Anyway, there are lots and lots of tangible reasons why this is ridiculously hard and still doable. #beautiful mind. Go watch the movie, read the book, follow the story. You can literally unwrite disease inside your body by leveraging the control and power in your brain. That's not easy, and it's not a quick fix, and it's not something that you can just be like, I'm gonna do it. You have to practice and practice and practice and practice and practice and practice forever. Make that choice. Okay. But Recognizing that it is a choice, knowing that it is a choice means that you know that you have the skills to handle life. It's no longer a matter of, will I survive this? It's, how can I thrive through this? It's no longer a question of, will I be able to handle it? It's, how am I going to handle this? You change the conversation entirely when you jack back your energy from the thousands of things you cannot control and refocus it back here. This is why this is all part of the clarity section of the CARA method, because you have to become really clear on the foundational science of you and other people so that you can know with the confidence that I can say it to you with, that you absolutely have everything that you need now, that you are so abundantly worthy. In fact, you matter so much that your joy brings joy to the world. Sit with that for a second. Feel that for a second. Because the science says that it's true. And you know that it's true because you have felt that. You have felt being around somebody who exists in a state of joy, who has chosen that through the good, through the bad. And I'm not talking the Pollyanna because I was the Pollyanna at first, but really recognizing that the hard parts of life are part of what make the good parts of life, right? It's not either or, it's more like shadow and light, and you can't see the stars if it's not dark. Your stardust cannot sparkle if you have not gone through darkness. I'm sorry, you're welcome. Congratulations, you're humaning perfectly. Haha. But really, really, it's not what you come with that matters, it's what you do with. Life is going to happen. Life is change. Development is choice, and your choice matters. You matter. Development matters. This is why I live in the space of leadership development. After the loss of my brother, I committed suicide. After the loss of my brother, I had to take a hard look at life in general. It really came as a sideways blow. I was not prepared for it. And tangibly from the outside, he had all the successes, which is a story we hear so much. I was living that same story. My parents had lived that same story. My dad had been CEO of Citicorp and watched as his health declined, his family declined, his community declined, as he got more successful, which meant he made more money and he had more responsibilities. But he didn't have more support and he didn't have more time with his family. He didn't have any of the things that allow for that work-life balance. You cannot balance, sorry, tiny soapbox here. You cannot balance your work and your life. Your work are like grains of sand against the beach that is your life. You do not work so much that it will ever balance against that. Unless you do the work of you. Now we're getting ahead of ourselves because we're going to get into that in a future session. What I want to gift you with is clarity, that you absolutely have everything that you need, that this whole leadership experience, the whole leadership development stuff that I talk about all of the time, you're actually already really good at. You have been doing, whether or not you were leading other people, you have been doing it for yourself your entire life. You have learned, you have played, you have grown, you have gone from a child to an adult, and you have survived traumas and dramas and leveraged those lessons and those successes to get to where you are today. And that process is the process of behavioral genetics, where you choose your behaviors. You take back control in your own life. And this is, we're going right back to the hashtag Magic3. This is why I say this so much. Because the way you think, the way you speak, and the way you behave, when you align those, the changes are rapid, They are powerful and they ripple out from you like a tsunami. They're happening whether you want them to or not. So this is your opportunity to take the permission of life and have that energy and that power and that control and that impact and do it intentionally. Now, if you would like support on how to do that intentionally, hit me up. If I'm not the right person, I know holy bunches of other people who could absolutely be a help. Also, come hang out in Cara Corner over at the Facebook. It's a complimentary group. We do a weekly review where we epigenetically, I have created, y'all, I'm so proud of me. I created a weekly review that leverages my top 5 tools that I use every single day and will epigenetically train your brain to disconnect from judgment from judgmental, because your brain is designed to make judgment. It's been doing it. That's how you survive, is your brain makes a judgment about things. It's when we get involved and that we add that AL and it becomes judgmental, and now we're connecting a situation to self. Right? We've seen this, you have seen this 100,000 times. How many times have you felt that you were person against person rather than people against situation? We attach things to individuals, forgetting that the last choice we make says less about us than the next choice that we make, because your choice matters. Okay. So it actually helps recreate brain pathways in your neuroplasty in a dynamic way that allows you to schedule yourself back into your week and schedule out overwhelm so that you can have the base tools to do this work, the real work, the weekly overload of responsibility and knowledge. I'm getting ahead. We're going to go into that when we start talking about understanding the processes. But the weekly overload of responsibility and knowledge, the real work of life, is taking care of yourself before you address anyone else, so that you don't use your BS as gasoline on the dumpster fire train wreck avalanche that is already happening. We just don't need more of that, okay? And that's leadership epigenetics. That is behavioral epigenetics, behavioral genetics, and that is the power of understanding how our brains are exactly the same and completely different, and how those differences actually are awesome. And the more you learn about that, the more you can leverage those other perspectives and really choose how you want to map your own brain and DNA. Okay, that was a lot. Let's go to questions.